The men and women who work at the 911 lines and radio consoles have received hundreds or thousands of hours of training. They know their agency's policies and protocols, what every command in the system does, and how to perform their duties to the utmost. But still, there is a certain level of intuition that must be relied on in some circumstances. This is LifeLine. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of LifeLine 911 with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I am your co-host, Gary, and thank you for joining us on our final episode of Season 2, the end of 2025. Woohoo! We made it!
Yes.
Today we are going to be discussing intuition. Now, Erica, you found this article about Hamilton County, Tennessee dispatcher Valerie Pitts, who was recently honored for some work that she did. Can you kind of explain what happened with that?
Yeah, I was just perusing, the internet looking for, interesting topics. And I usually start with, like 911 dispatchers in the news kind of thing. And this one popped up. And I believe she's in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And what caught my eye was that the day after Thanksgiving, she received a call from someone. And there's not a lot of detail, which makes perfect sense given the nature. But the gist of it was she received a call from this lady who was really upset, and she wanted to speak to a particular officer, which anybody who works in the industry knows that happens. People feel comfortable, the officer's taking her reports and is familiar with her situation, so she felt more comfortable speaking with him, but he wasn't on duty. And so she did not want to tell, I don't know if it's Mrs. or Ms., but she didn't want to tell Valerie what this was all about. And she just was adamant that she could not go into detail. And my guess is Valerie probably pressed her, tried to figure out, okay, well, if you can't tell me exactly what that's about, can you tell me what caused you to pick up the phone and call 911 today, which is what her job is. And the lady would not give her any more. She insisted that she was fine when she couldn't speak to this officer. It just didn't sit well with Valerie.
Sure.
And so, following her instincts, trusting her gut, and her training, she said to her supervisors, I would imagine something like, I really can't tell you why, but I just feel like we need to go check on this lady. My guess is it didn't fit any protocol. It didn't fit neatly into the boxes of the SOPs the way we like them to. And so she advocated. And that's what stood out to me. I just imagine that I really want to talk to this lady. But anyway, uh, I would imagine that she advocated for this person on the other end of the phone and just said, I really think we ought to check on her. And the supervisors agreed and they sent. And turns out she needed medical care.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
later on, I think I think they said it could have saved her life. Now, we don't know if she was in such dire straits that it was life threatening, but for them to circle back and give her an award and recognition on the level that she got tells me that it was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of times on this show and in many dispatch, emergency centers throughout the country, at least, we harp a lot on, training. Do your training. Your training is going to help make you sharper and better. Um, but training is just part of the toolbox. You also, you know, there's this thing that sits between, these 2 points, and if you can demonstrate, that there's a neuron firing somewhere, that's also a really helpful tool to have aside from just
Yeah.
the training. Can you logic through a situation? Can you think about how
Hmm.
best to handle it? And it sounds
Yeah.
like Valerie noticed something was off or just didn't feel comfortable about it, and
Yeah.
took that to the next level, and possibly saved life with that.
Yeah. And the reason it stood out so much to me today is because I was telling you, Gary, before the show, just yesterday, um, at my center, my supervisor partner and I conducted what our manager likes to call huddles, and where we took some of the newer people on the floor. We had the staffing, so we pulled three or four of them to into the training room, and we just went over some of the bigger calls, like officer needs assistance or help calls, depending on what you call them in your agency. But, what to do when it's time to send the cavalry, and not to go too far off topic, but one of the things that we told them over and over again in both these meetings was trust your instincts, trust your training, trust the critical thinking skills that we've helped you develop over time. And if you can articulate to me why you did something or nothing, or this action over that action, if you could articulate that to me as a supervisor, I should be able to either back you up or ever so gently correct, but at the same time, applaud your willingness to advocate on behalf of either the officer or the citizen. And in this case, Valerie advocated on behalf of this person. And I don't want to imply that people did not want to send help, but what I'm saying is when there's no reasonable explanation for why you feel the way you feel about this call, dig in, because you never know.
Right. And again, that's not to say do anything that violates policy or procedure.
No, thank
Typically,
you.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah, I certainly don't want to say that. Yes.
yeah. Because typically, when you have SOPs, the S, as we've said, stands for standard.
Hmm.
Or as how did you put it in that one episode? Unicorn time, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. When the the sky is blue and the cats and dogs are living together, and all the animals are living as one,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah, which doesn't always happen. So typically your standard operating procedures will have some latitude in them with which you can
Hmm.
operate because there's there's an unlimited number of situations that can happen. Life gets messy, and so
Hmm.
part of being a really good telecommunicator is you first off you have to have that fundamental training of knowing how to do what you need to do, but
Yes.
then you get into I don't want to say the creative side, but you come to a deeper
Yeah.
understanding of how to apply these rules, policies, and procedures because ultimately each of your cop cars is going to have a slogan on the side that says something like protect and serve to keep you, your
Hmm.
family, your community safe, something like that.
Right.
And that is your raison d'etre, as the French
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
And how do you apply those that training you have, those policies and procedures, in order to protect and serve? And it's,
Sure.
from what the article was saying, Valerie did an excellent job of doing that because even though there may not have been a call title exactly for what was happening,
Hmm.
she was like, "This doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Something more needs to happen on this."
Yeah. And she, ultimately they ended up with, I think it's a check welfare or welfare check or check well, whatever something like that. And that's where they landed. But it was because, I can almost imagine it like, okay, does this fit? No, that doesn't fit. Does that fit? No, that doesn't fit. It's not as big as this, but it's certainly not the lowest of the low. But because I'm worried about her overall welfare,
Hmm.
or her well-being, she landed there. And I just think that is just that embodies what we do.
Yes, yeah, and
She,
yeah, and as you said, uh, she was willing to advocate for it because that didn't fit a particular niche. It was something
mhm,
that wasn't inside that. So she took that and she said, "Hey, this isn't exactly right, but there's something that is off on this. This lady needs to be checked on." And as we were talking about before the show, say she's wrong. What does it cost? Gallon of gas?
yeah, which we can easily replace.
Mm-hmm.
And had she not followed her instincts, who knows what the outcome would have been. And this is, I think, especially important if we have any of the newer, less experienced telecommunicators listening to this or will listen to this. This is, I don't know how many years of service Valerie has, but it doesn't really matter how many years of service she has. She went with her instincts, and when you're new, you always want to, you tend to compare yourself to, well, she has so much, so much more experience than me. I don't know if I have, I have the right to say something like that. I've only been doing it 6 months. I don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care. Advocate, speak up, jump up and down, call attention to it, and be passionate, in a healthy way, and be willing and able to articulate your why, be able to break it down for me. If you are the newest of the new and you come to me with this, I'm going to say, okay, now tell me why.
Hmm.
Why are we doing this? Why are we stepping a little outside the lines? Why are we coloring a little bit outside the lines here? Because that's really what it is when you think about SOPs. It's like having a blueprint, and we operate within those. But when something doesn't sit right, something doesn't sound right, and it just you can't tell me what it is other than I just really think we ought to check.
Hmm.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
get with that.
Yeah. Because, you know, processing 911 calls, dispatching them, it is less of a science than an art in a lot of ways.
Agreed. Oh, well
Be-
said.
because it's not specific. For example, on a 911 line, you're going to have this utter cloud of chaos, and you have to distill
Hmm.
that into one title code that your agency uses. And your agency might have 30 title codes or it might have 100,
Hmm.
but there's going to be this unlimited number of possibility out here. So we talked about earlier on another episode a an airplane crash that we had in town years and years ago.
Hmm.
We don't have a we didn't have a title code for that specifically.
Well, that one, it crashed into the building.
Yeah, so let's start with the crash and go from there. I know, and
Yes.
we'll send more resources until we have a handle on this situation.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to use your mind, your intellect,
Hmm.
because kind of what the other episode we were talking about, AI, that's something AI is not, I don't think, capable of really doing, is having that intuition, that gut instinct. In fact, there's a
Hmm.
whole episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation with Data on that. Um,
Oh, don't get us started, you guys. If you've been listening long enough, you already know that's. We can go into several episode rabbit holes, but I'm gonna refrain, Gary.
okay, all right, all right. When you're hired onto an agency, you're also bringing a piece of yourself, and that's
Hmm.
sometimes a good thing. Sometimes that's a drawback, depending on how you maybe interact with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But that knowledge, that intuition, it can't be taught, it can't be replaced.
Well said. Yes. Agreed. Agreed. And you trust that. And from the I can speak from the perspective of supervisors, which Gary and I are, I really believe, and most supervisors here probably that are listening would agree, depending on how you bring it to them and the level of, conviction you bring with it, or even if you don't know how exactly to say what it is you're trying to say, they will be willing to help you because what we all want is the best possible outcomes for all of these calls.
Absolutely. There's nothing that I like more than being able to write one of my employees up for a commendation,
Mm-hmm.
something positive about
Yeah.
something that they did. They took the initiative. They did something,
Oh,
and especially if it's,
yes.
yeah, especially if it's something like they saved a life or
What?
potentially did. That's
All day,
yeah.
every day. Give me that to do every day, and I'm good.
Just
Absolutely.
just don't feel like you're you're boxed in by your policies and
Hmm.
procedures, because ultimately all they do and all of the equipment does that we have and all of the rules and everything that we have, it's all to protect and serve. It's all to meet that goal. And if there's something that is not doing that in the best way, you got to work around it.
Agreed. And that's why we have you. That's why you are
Thank you.
there. That's why that's why you went through the process of, you put in your application and you went through the background check and you went through whatever aptitude testing that they may have put you through, little or even if there was none, and you got into the building and now you made it through your OJT. It is a process. I don't care how long or short, it is still a process, and you made it through that process to the point where now you're in a position to affect someone's safety or not. And that's a huge responsibility. So trust that you're in the right seat, in the right place for a reason. It's no happy accident that you arrived there. So speak up.
Hmm. And how many of the topics that we've discussed, whether it be Nastasia's like 4 hour suicidal person call, you
Yeah.
have to use a lot of instincts on that.
Yeah.
There's so many of these things that you can't get taught. Trust yourself. If you're there for a reason.
Yeah. And supervisors, colleagues, peers that might be listening to this, I'm talking to you too. Trust your people and be willing to back them up. Be willing to come alongside and say, "Hey, even if the higher ups ask the question, why are we doing this?" Well, we're doing this because, and you will make a world of difference, not just for the person on the other end of the phone, but your charge, the person that is answering to your direct report, because now you're empowering them and creating that safe space for them to trust their instincts. Because if we as leadership are so boxed into the rules and the SOPs and the this, that, and the other without and not wanting to color outside the line at all. I'm not talking about breaking rules and becoming rogue, but being willing to step outside the lines just a little bit to advocate for the people who are doing the advocating, then why are we there?
I echo that about you don't want to go rogue. It's not saying ignore the rules and the policies and
No.
procedures. It's saying understand them at a level that you intrinsically know them and know what they're trying to achieve, what the point of them is.
Mm-hmm.
Because while if you always color inside the lines, you may never get in trouble. You also really won't reach your full potential because those lines
Agreed.
are sometimes going to be barriers to a successful
Mm-hmm.
outcome.
And we also trust as leadership, our leadership hires us into these positions also expecting that we would be at one point, if need be, able to use something that they don't put on any piece of paper anywhere, and that's called judgment. Good judgment. Because I promise you can say, well, it didn't say the SOP and this, that, or the other, but at some point someone might very well look at you and go, well, where was your good judgment in this?
Yeah, these situations are not uncommon. I mean, we had the snowpocalypse episode we talked about. We were off script there. We
Oh,
had
yeah.
we had the episode with Tatiana where she talked about the cloud strike, or yeah, the cloud strike issue.
Yeah, talk
Uh,
about being off script.
yeah, off script there. These moments are going to happen, and they're not going to be infrequent. So you have to be comfortable with that. And I'm going to refrain from making another Star Trek reference, but you
No,
just
no,
have
no.
to
Go
be
ahead. We just can't go down. Go ahead. I love it. Just which one? What we talking about?
well, like if you look at Captain Picard, he's a very straight laced kind of by the books guy,
Yep.
but he oftentimes, especially when his people bring him things and say, "Hey, we need to do this," may violate the prime directive, which is like they're in Star Trek. That's like the number one thing you need to do. Like, but he's doing it because it's the right thing, and it's really what the purpose is. So, if
Mm-hmm.
you know that purpose and you have that, as Simon Sinek says, if you have the why, if you start with why, you can really achieve a lot.
Yep. Agreed. Absolutely. Yep.
Well, I think before we call it for the year, how about we do a few mailbag questions?
Ding ding, mailbag's here. It's the sound we love to hear. Quick and bright, the vibe is clear. Let's read your words with a cheer.
Our first question is from City Walker Liz. Is there a way for regular people to know what information dispatchers really need so we don't waste time during emergencies?
Yes. And I'm going to shock, amaze, and surprise you. with how simple it is to find it. You could Google it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not even trying to be funny. I can break it down for you right now. That's easy. The first thing we want to know is the address. We're going to ask you, and we absolutely must have that. In the corner of walk and don't walk don't really work for us. I need something I can actually put into the
Yeah.
system. An address is ideal. An intersection is I'll take it. At the very least, I need a landmark. Um, at the very least, if all you can give me is the Coliseum, my guess is there's probably only one, maybe two of those. Then I'll ask you a series of questions to try to narrow that down. We're going to want your phone number, and the reason we don't need it, but it's good that we have it because in case something goes wrong, I need to be able to call you back and pick up the conversation where it left off. I need to know, what's wrong.
That
At the
yeah,
very
that's
least,
important.
those, and if I can't, phone numbers is lovely, but if I can't have that, I'll survive. But I really gotta know where. I can't do anything without where and an idea of what's happening. Are you hurt? Or is someone hurt? Or is there, any kind of weapon situation? Just a gist. Well, I'm being robbed. Okay, well, that tells me most likely there's some sort of weapon involved. There's a fear, intimidation, scared. That kind of gives us something to start for. But I can be honest with you and say if you Google and say, what does a 911 operator really need to know? You're going to find that at least two of those three things are going to pop up at the very, very top.
Mm-hmm. I would say that if you don't need to worry about that because the person on the other end is going to ask you hopefully very short closed-ended questions about everything they need to know, so
Hmm.
don't stress about that. I will say though that knowing or at least having an idea of where you're at is going to be
Yes.
like, know that at least, know that,
Yeah.
because without that none of the other
Nothing.
questions matter. So
Nope. Nothing else
be
happens.
be aware of where you're at, what
Hmm.
city maybe.
And if you don't know, download What Three Words. It's an amazing tool for anyone, and we use it in law enforcement in EMS and probably even the fire department at times. I'm sure they use it, and it's great for lay people to use to be able to tell first responders where you are, and you can use it for your friends and family too. It's got a great navigation component to it too. It's called What Three Words. If you're in a new city, you've never been there before, that's the first thing you need to download is What Three Words.
Very, very helpful tool. Yes, I agree.
Yep.
Our second question is from Tech Nerd on break. Do dispatch centers really use old technology, or is that just a myth? Why isn't everything modernized by now? Is that a
No, it's
myth,
not a myth.
Erica?
Yeah, no, 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 it's not.
No.
Unfortunately, it's not. Why isn't everything modernized? Because the truth is, it requires money, and we don't have a um, unlimited source of it. Everything has to be every penny in municipalities and government is supposed to be accounted for. That's just, and I'm sure you may have an opinion here, Gary, but the truth is, it's just not that easy in a bureaucracy. And these
Yeah.
technologies have to be tested and vetted and made sure that they work for the purposes that we need them to work. And are there any privacy components involved? And there's all kind of stuff.
Hmm.
You go, Gary. I'm sure you've got a couple of answers for that.
No, yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just there's a lot of red tape involved with
Hmm.
anything in the bureaucracy because you don't have just a pot of money like a private company does where they can just allocate funds as they need them to. These
Yeah.
usually have to be voted on and allocated a year or two in advance and as a
Yeah.
capital expenditure. Lots of progress there. And then you've also got more safety and concerns than you might
Hmm.
in just like an AT&T center, because are these going to be able to keep data secure? Will transmissions be encrypted? That kind of
Hmm.
information. So there's a lot going on to that. So it is typically more antiquated in the government sector with the equipment that you're going to be using. And that usually is because this is if it's a known thing that works, we may not need to change it until
Mhm.
whatever the thing we're using reaches its end of service. And then it's a
Mhm.
scramble to try and find the replacement for that. Not
Yeah.
that I have anything in mind in particular on that, but
But you know what? I miss a good Mapsco. Give me a
mm,
good Mapsco any day of the week. As long as if it's an up to date and it's paper and it's got a little metal binder holding it together, I'm good because I can find my way. The technology can go splat tomorrow. I will not be lost.
but yes,
How
there
about
has
that?
been there has been a lot of advancement in technology of things that are used. Like Erica, you mentioned what 3 words?
Mhm.
That's a very powerful piece of technology that'll give your location to a 3 square meter area, I think.
Mhm.
So that's really useful because that's how we have to start every call, be it police, fire, or EMS. We need a
Yep.
location. So it
Yep.
is advancing, just not at breakneck neck speeds, at a safe
Yeah.
pace.
Yeah.
Plus, you have
Agreed.
to convince people to upgrade it. Like we had Sheriff Creech on, who
Yep.
was working in Idaho trying to upgrade their systems. So yeah, there's
It's a
elements that you
process.
have to convince.
Yeah. It's a process.
Alrighty, and our third question, Badger Headset asks, do dispatchers ever move into field roles like police or EMS, or are those completely separate career paths? It's a good question.
It is. They do. I know for EMS, most well for our city anyway. I believe they are EMTs at at the very least. They get some training in that. I am not 1000% positive on that, but I do know it is not uncommon for our center for people to come in as a 911 operator or come in as a dispatcher or come in as an operator, move over to dispatch, and then eventually go out to the academy and become police officers. We've had at least one on here that I can think of off the top of my head. Who was that?
Sarah.
Sarah. Sarah. Yeah, we've got a handful of friends that have done it. And so while they have to resign their position to go into the academy, they are separate, but they do complement each other. You don't often find police officers leaving the streets to come inside unless there's an injury or a life change that, that it can't be avoided and they still want to stay in law enforcement. It's usually the other way around.
Mm-hmm. I, if the question's asking, can you get promoted into a police officer role from like a call taker or dispatcher, then that
Hmm.
answer is usually no, because those are 2 separate career paths. It's just
Okay.
they
Yeah,
work
that
they
makes
work
more
closely.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, when you say it like that.
yeah, I'm not sure which way it was asking it. However, in uh, the fire department and EMS land, those I believe typically are people that work on the rigs, and then they'll sometimes come in and work radios and phones a little bit. So that's a little
Yeah.
bit more interchangeable on that end. But typically, I can't think of any agency where you would really staff uh, 911 with sworn anymore. I mean, they used to do that a long, long time ago, but
Yeah. But
that's
now they are two separate careers, if you will. Yeah, now that we're talking it through, I think the answer is that they are two separate ones because there's a separate license for us in our state. There's a separate license for a telecommunicator and versus for a police officer. It's a completely different license. So,
mhm, yeah.
yeah.
It's just going to depend on your agency. But
Hmm.
yeah, as Erica said, there's lots of examples. Typically, it's people moving from the telecommunicator role to the peace officer role, or maybe even a jailer, constable, something like that.
True.
Um,
You're right.
but you don't typically see it from the field into communications. And
Yeah.
I mean, we have had a couple of people that used to be cops, and then maybe they
Sure,
retired and wanted.
but usually that's what I mean. Like they either a life event, they retired, they no longer want to do that or can't do that because of maybe a physical thing, or they've just aged out of that, and not a thing in the world wrong with it, and they still love the profession overall, and so they just decide to come on this side of it.
Hmm. Yeah, so there are options. I mean, if that's what you want to do, don't let don't let a little changing of divisions hold you back.
That's true. So you
Well,
said earlier this is the last episode for the year. We're taking a break. So is that what, like a month?
no, no, we are going to. This episode will be coming out December 15th, and we are going to be taking a 2 week hiatus and coming back January 5th, Monday, with season 3.
Wow. And some maybe some changes. I'm not gonna change. Well, no, I can't say that. I was gonna say I'm not gonna change my hair, but that's not true. Never mind.
Yes, we we really have enjoyed this season with you guys. We've appreciated a lot of the inputs and questions that you guys have sent in. We love that. Please do keep it coming. Again, as
Yes.
we often say, we do this job, we do this podcast for you guys. You know,
Yeah.
we care about the profession and we want it to succeed going forward in the future. Because Erica and I won't be here forever.
We will not. Sad to say. I'm just broken up about it, but yeah, it's true.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Um, but that's why we do that. We have had a wonderful time this year. We got to do a
Mhm.
lot of cool things. I really enjoyed going to our little podcast conference. That was fun,
That was very cool. Very cool. Yes, loved it.
and had the opportunity to interview a lot of really interesting people and
Yep.
get to hear their stories and what's going on. Um, and I hope that you all have really enjoyed listening to those.
Yeah. And if you think, I mean, and here's the thing, we want to hear your stories. If you are a 911 operator or a dispatcher, or if you know someone that has a very cool story, it does not have to be, just this big grand thing. If you work in a part of the country that has a unique challenge, we want to hear about that. This is not just for Gary and I to just blabber all, for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, but we are wanting to shine the spotlight on our peers and our colleagues in this profession. So it is not it's not arrogant to drop us a line and say, I'd like to be on the show, because we're constantly um, on the prowl looking for interesting first responders, or even those that support first responders, because Versaterm comes on quite often.
Yes.
AEP comes on quite often, and they are not PSAPs. Though some of those people work in PSAPs, they are not actual PSAPs. So if you happen to hear this and you're like, you know what, I think I have an interesting product or something that I would like to introduce to the profession or remind the profession that it's out there, hit us up either in the comments or send us an email at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com.
Very well said, Erica.
Yeah,
Because yeah, we never know when there might be something really cool and that would be really helpful to a particular agency. And if your company's making it, that's how we get it out there, and maybe
yep,
it'll help save a life or two.
agreed.
Well, we hope that you all have enjoyed spending this year with us. We know we have with you. We hope that you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday, and we will see you all next year.
Next year. Thank you for watching our production of Lifeline 911. If you have any questions about today's topic or topics you'd like us to cover in the future, please reach out to us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. This has been a production of Lifeline 911 Podcast, copyright 2025. From all of us at Lifeline, stay safe out there. And until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.